But that will do it for the college basketball buy sell. We move to some NBA action. We have some fantasy basketball moves to make. We will each list one player to trade for, trade away, and grab from waivers in your fantasy basketball league. And Braden, I will let you get us started with a player to trade for.
I'm going to go with Cooper Flag as my player you should trade for. Now, Flag was going pretty early in most drafts. I was just taking a quick look at our league, and you took him at the 40th overall pick, which in a 10-man league, last pick of the fourth round. I'm not sure if you would trade him, Mr. Calder, but if you were to trade him, what what would you value Cooper Flag at? Just curious. Would you value him a little bit less than where you took him to start the year, or is he about that same mark still?
I think he's about the same mark because I did actually draft him in our league. I took him at the very back of the fourth. So I think I would want something close, but I don't know that I would expect, anything greater than the value I got him at.
Got it. So yeah, Cooper Flag might not be a guy who's super attainable to trade for, but I think in some leagues there's going to be a window because from a raw statistical standpoint, he's maybe kind of underwhelmed this year, which I think is unfair to Cooper Flag. He's still putting up 15 and a half points, 6.3 boards, 3.1 assists, and 2 stocks per game. But it's not the 20 and 8 that a lot of people might have been expecting out of the gate, which is really unfair expectations. But over the last, handful of weeks, Flag's up to 17 points per game, 6.4 boards, 3.4 assists, and averaging 2.6 stocks per game. In ESPN scoring formats, he's averaging 36.4 fantasy points per game across that time frame. His average for the year is 31 points per game. So we are seeing improvement out of Cooper Flag for sure. A lot of that has to do with Anthony Davis going down. And I expect Anthony Davis to either miss more time throughout the year or potentially get traded. So I think there's going to be a great buy window at Cooper Flag if you can get him in your league right now.
And I got to be honest, I was going to go with Cooper Flag before you took him from me. So I think that's a great pick there. I have very little to add to that. I'm going to go with the guy who I've been very high on for the past couple of years. That is Reed Shepard, second-year guard for the Rockets, really starting to find his footing. Over the last 6 games, he's averaging 16 and a half points, as well as 3 rebounds, assists, and steals per game, over 27 minutes per game. I think this is a guy that's only going to get better as the year goes on. And in fantasy basketball, where big men are usually the highest point scorers, unless your name is like Luka Doncic or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, having a guard that's fun, or that's not fun, playing his best ball at the end of the year could really help you win a title when it's all said and done. So I think getting a guy who's still very young, still has his best ball ahead of him in Reed Shepard is a great guy to go get.
Yeah, I think Reed Shepard's going to be relatively cheap. I think in a lot of redraft leagues as well. He's been playing a lot more than I kind of expected with Fred VanVleet being out with a torn ACL. I wouldn't be shocked if we get some Reed Shepard starter minutes towards the end of the year as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's still coming off the bench right now, right?
As far as Braden, a trade away player, who are you going with here?
Sure thing. So for my trade away player, I'll go with Nikola Vucevic here. Vucevic is averaging 35 and a half fantasy points per game in ESPN formats right now. And he's been a pretty consistent fantasy producer for most of his career. However, he is off to a miserable start at this point, at least from an efficiency standpoint. 48.5% from the floor as a center is just not going to cut it. The 3-point shooting has been fairly good. He's at 41% from 3-point range. But in 2 of his last 3 games, he shot 3 of 13 against the Nuggets for 8 points and 3 of 10 against the Pistons for 6 points. He's been in trade rumors for quite a while with the Bulls. Obviously, they're off to a semi-decent start right now, so maybe they don't want to shake things up. But I kind of expect the Bulls to fall back to earth at least a little bit over the next, couple of months. If Vucevic gets traded, those scoring and those rebounding numbers are going to go down. There's a higher chance that Vucevic has a completely lower floor than a higher ceiling as a result of any moves that can be made this season by the Bulls. So I think, if you're seeing this level of production where he's putting up, mid-20s fantasy points per game a lot over the last couple of weeks, that's a big concern for me. So I would trade him away right now if you can.
Yeah, and I like that pick. I remember when we were doing our draft earlier in, I think it was September or maybe early October. He was like the 19th player overall on the board. and I thought that was way too high at the time. I think he wound up going like mid to late fourth because I was going to take him before I took Cooper Flag. But yeah, I think with what we've been seeing recently is probably going to be closer to what we see over the rest of the season. So yeah, I'm in that same boat. If you have Vucevic, I would look to trade him now before it just kind of flatlines with where it's at. So I like that. I will go with another big man as my tradeaway player. That is going to be Heat forward slash center Khalil Ware. I love him as a player. I think he's extremely underappreciated. He's gotten to start while Bam Adebayo's been out and has been great. Over his last 4 games, he's averaging 15 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game. The problem, though, is that once Bam is back, Ware is going to be pushed back to the bench. And while he was on the bench at the start of the season, he was averaging right around 20 minutes per game. And I just don't know that it's a safe bet that even with how well he's playing, that he's going to be rewarded with a spot in the starting lineup. I would love it if that happens. I think he's deserving of a starting lineup spot. But while you can still get quality production out of him, I would look to sell him for somebody who you know is going to be able to help you for the entire season.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. I think on this one, it probably makes sense to trade him away if somebody's willing to trade for him. But at the same time, I don't think holding on to Khalil Ware is necessarily going to be a bad move. Looking at the rest of the Heat's kind of big man rotation, you've obviously got Bam there, who's going to be playing the majority of the minutes. Beyond that, you're running some combination of Ware, Andrew Wiggins, Nikola Jovic, Pele Larson, Simone Fontecchio in the front court. I think there's plenty of minutes to go around for Khalil Ware still. He's probably not going to be playing, 30 plus minutes every single night, but I could see him playing, 26 to maybe 30 minutes on the upper end, a lot of nights too. So I think that still translates to fantasy production. He'll probably be the primary scorer of the second unit if he's playing off the bench. I think there is a lot to like still about Khalil Ware, and obviously that's why you're in on him as a player, even if you're, putting him as a trade away candidate for fantasy purposes.
And then lastly, we have a player to add from the waiver wire. Now, that qualifies as somebody who is rostered in 50% of leagues or less. So, Braden, who is that guy for you?
I'm going to go with Derek Queen here. According to ESPN, he's rostered in 16% of ESPN leagues, and he's been off to a solid start this year. Not setting the world on fire, but that's kind of what happens when you play for the New Orleans Pelicans, who have already fired head coach Willie Green. Over the last couple of weeks, Derek Queen has started to see more and more playing time. Out of his first 5 games, or I guess out of his first 7 games, he cracked 20 minutes in just one of them. Since then, he has played at least 24 and a half minutes every single night. He's seen one game with 37 minutes, another game with 29 minutes. For most of the rest of the year, with the Pelicans' center rotation being in kind of a flux, I would expect Queen to be playing somewhere between 25 to potentially 35 minutes on the upper end. He's shooting the ball decently well. Not great for a big man at 47%, but there's room for improvement on that front. He's at least getting quite a few shots up. Took 18 shots in the win over Portland, made 12 of them, en route to a 26-point game. He's taken 10 shots in 2 of the last 3 games beyond that, or I guess 3 of the last 4 games outside of that game as well. And overall is a solid rebounder too. He's put up 61 total rebounds over the course of the year, which translates to 6.2 per game. Okay passer at 2.6 assists. He's going to be contributing enough to be worth a roster spot.
Yeah, and his per 36 numbers have been really good, so I like that pick there. You went with one Pelicans rookie. I'm going with another one. It is Jeremiah Fears, who was the 7th overall pick in this past year's draft, a guard. He is only owned in 19.2% of ESPN leagues at the moment, and his numbers recently are almost identical to Reed Shepard's. Over the last week, he is averaging 26 minutes per game, and in those 26 minutes per game, 18.8 points, 3.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists, with 2.3 steals per game. He's been getting quality minutes in almost every game so far this year, and there's no reason that that shouldn't continue with how bad the Pelicans roster is. So he may not be an everyday starter when you've got a full slate of games and everybody on your team's playing, but at least not right now. But that's not to say that he can't turn into that, over the winter and come spring when it really matters.
Yeah, Fears has been off to a nice start. He's at just under 45% from the floor, which is pretty good for a guard. 35.4% from three on just under 5 attempts per game, getting to the line at an okay clip, taking about 4 free throws per 36 minutes. Per 36 minutes is at 18 field goal attempts per game as well. So if we start seeing Jeremiah Fears games, in the mid and later half of the season where he's playing, 36, 38, 40 minutes, there's going to be quite a bit of volume to go around for Fears. If he can maintain most of that efficiency clip, we're going to see quite a few good fantasy performance out of him. So I like that as a pickup option.